I recently gave the closing plenary at a conference called SCELT in Bratislava, and it was really well received. I've had some lovely feedback about it, so I've decided to make a kind of shortened version of the plenary and just highlight some of the key things that I was talking about. I basically focused on three key technologies, three AI technologies that all have a free option. And I demonstrated more ideas around using them. So I looked more at the creative side than just simply how the technologies work. So I'm going to take you through a much shorter version of that presentation. I really hope you find it useful. And if you do, please like it, please share it, please comment on it. I'd love to know what you think of my ideas. And most of all though, I'd really like to have more of you sign up to my YouTube channel. And if you can as well, don't forget to give me some hype points. Let's get started. So the first technology I focused on is a free tool that comes inside of Google Gemini, and it allows you to make books. And these books or stories can be up to 10 pages long. You can share them with your students, and the books include pictures, text and audio. Let me just play a few seconds of this one here, which is about a businessman who had a really hard day at work.
The longest Tuesday. Tom woke up with a start. The sunlight was streaming through the curtains, far brighter than it should have been for 7 a.m. He glanced at his alarm clock and gasped. It was already 8:30.
Now, one thing is that a lot of people are mistaken about is that you can share these stories that you can generate in seconds very quickly by just simply clicking on this button here, and then the link that you generate, students can access that link even if they don't have a Google account. So that's a big misunderstanding. Some people seem to think you need to have a Google account to be able to access these stories. So potentially you can be sharing stories with students, but what perhaps is more interesting is that the stories that you generate, you have massive control over both the language, the content, the topic, etc. So you really can, if you want, shape the stories around the book or the topic or the vocabulary or the grammar, etc. that you are currently working on with your students. Now, Gemini Storybooks does work in the free tool. I'm going to demonstrate that. And to access Gemini Storybooks, all you need to do is go to your apps and of course look for Gemini. So click on Gemini, and then I'm going to show you now where to access the storybooks inside of Gemini. You can notice I'm using the free tool. Of course it's limited, but you can use it. And if you click on gems, so click on gems, you'll see that you have a few options here, and one of them is storybooks. Now another way to get a storybook is simply to go to new chat, and write make me a storybook about. Okay, so both ways will work. I'm going to click on gems and simply click on storybooks. Now the key to using this technology is the information that you provide to help Google Gemini generate your story. Now I want you to focus on the rubric, because this is the important thing to understand. You can give a lot of detail. So I've asked for a storybook about a boy who travels to Poland to learn Polish. He has lots of experiences like mountain climbing, learning the language, traveling to some big cities, making new friends, hiking through forest, visiting historic castles. I want the story to be in the past, and I want it to be suitable for students of English of B1 level, so an intermediate level. In the story, the boy likes it so much he decides to live there permanently. So I've written quite a lot of detail. I'm in the storybook section, and I've even said a storybook, and now I'm going to click on this button here. Now, just a little tip. You do get a limited amount of Pro even when using the free tool, so you might want to click on here. So it might work better. Let's give it a try. We're going to click on this button, and I'm really hoping it's going to generate the story. I forgot to mention, actually, you can even dictate, for example, the name of the character, what the character looks like. It's getting much better at being accurate with the pictures. In the past, the pictures used to change and the characters used to change through the pictures, but I've noticed now they're much more consistent. But obviously I've focused more on the language, but you can focus on the details within the actual story as well. We've got the story now, and what we do is just going to very quickly listen, just do a few seconds. So let's click here. Okay, the story opens onto the screen.
Polish journey. Julian arrived in Warsaw on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. He carried a heavy suitcase in one hand and a small Polish-English dictionary in the other. His goal was simple. He wanted to learn the language of his ancestors and explore the land they once called home.
Okay, I love these. I really think that encouraging our students to read is key. This example, for example, is great because we're looking at a context, i.e. traveling, going to another country, learning languages, but we're also looking at the language of the past simple. And as I said, you can really link in what you generate with different themes that you're teaching. Just to check, I am in the free tool here, but if I click here, do notice that it can also allow me to share. Now, it may be that in some countries you can't share. I really don't know, because the way Google works does vary from country to country, but certainly me working in the UK and working in Poland often, I don't seem to have any problems, even from the free tool, sharing my stories with my students. Of course, another thing that you can do is get students to generate their own stories, and that could be a really nice pair work activity, so the students actually think of the story, what they want to include in the story, and then write in the prompt and generate their stories and then sharing them with other students. I think that's a lovely activity, and remember, we are using the free tool. Okay, really hope you found that useful. I'm a massive fan of Storybooks, and I'm using them a lot to help me with Polish because that technology works in multiple languages. I'm going to move on now to another aspect of Google Gemini, which is the infographics and image generation. But what I'm going to do is show you a little bit more about how AI can actually help us to do quite creative ideas when we're working with images and infographics. So we'll move on to this second part, and if you do like the video, please like it, and of course please think about subscribing to my channel. Let's move on. So it's really about being creative about the way you think about how you use images and infographics, and let me give you a few ideas. Here we've got a typical list of irregular verbs taken from the book from Macmillan, Reach Higher. And if I just click here, I'm just going to show you what I turn this into by simply going on to Google Gemini and asking it to generate an infographic. And what it did, it generated this infographic here. And if you look at this, what I asked the Gemini to do was to generate an infographic that showed me some regularities within the irregular verbs. And you can see it done a really good job of this. And of course, I could print this out or share this infographic as an image with my students, or even just use it with them as part of a worksheet. So what it is about is really looking at the book you're using and taking opportunities from that book to generate more visual elements. I'm a real fan of building my learning around a book, building the AI around a book. I really like the book as a spine, as a guide to help me with my learning. I use a book, for example, when I'm studying Polish, but I often build and do activities with the AI. Here's another example again from the book Reach Higher. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, if I was going to teach this, how may I introduce it? Now, of course, I could use the content of the book, and the book might have some really nice activities. But if I felt that I wanted to focus on it in a slightly different way, then I was thinking how I might use the infographics. And an example might be that I get it to generate something like this. So it's just a common crimes, a kind of infographic to help students learn the vocabulary. And maybe even at the beginning, I might give them a list of words and get them to define these different crimes and then give them this as an answer sheet. So what I'm suggesting is that, we use the book and then use that as a guide to when we could perhaps use the AI to generate interesting visual content. Another example is here. Look at this. Is an activity that I like, these kind of word building activities. Okay, so we've got words that have got ment, eon or ent at the end. And again, I just turn this into a more visual type of learning activity by asking the Google Gemini infographics to generate for me the 3 categories. Now, of course, you do need to be very explicit when you ask Google Gemini to do this, but it is capable of generating really interesting infographics. Look at this example here. Building words around a keyword. So we've got photo, and then we've got photogenic, photographic, so photosynthesis, etc. Before we start to talk about how I generate infographics or how I generate images as well, I just want to talk a little bit and just want to take the AI a little bit further and show you a few ideas of how we can use the idea perhaps in a more creative way. Now, when we talk about pictures in language teaching, we often describe pictures, but the reality is pictures carry meaning. So we tend to focus very much on the surface area of a picture. We focus on the kind of surface level, just describing the picture. But of course, pictures need interpretation, and pictures have meaning and they carry meaning, and they're trying to influence people and shape our ideas. And in fact, perhaps in the society that we live in now more than ever. Now, there are ways that we can use the AI to help us to shift from always focusing on a description of a picture to focusing more on the meaning behind the picture. And I'm going to demonstrate a couple of ideas. We've got 2 images here. One of a shoe that looks like it probably comes from a businessman, looks very wealthy, polished shoe. And then the other shoe looks like someone who clearly needs a new pair of shoes and perhaps can't afford to buy them. Now, if we were to talk about this image, the typical thing we would do is to describe it. But what we could do is get the AI to generate a series of questions for us that encourage students to think about both the description and the meaning. And one way to do that is to actually say to the AI, can you provide 10 questions that focus on a description of this picture and 10 questions that focus on an interpretation? And the AI will generate the questions for you. Now, what you could do as an activity is select then the ones that you like, and then as an activity that you can do with your students is say to them, now look at the picture and choose one question from here, from section 1, and one question from section 2. So the students would then read all the questions, choose a question from here, choose a question from here, and then in pairs or in groups, they could discuss the question that they've chosen. Now, my advice would be is to get the students to read through all the questions first, because that's a really good activity anyway. Get them then to write down the question that they want to focus on. Once everyone's got their questions ready, you jump back to the picture and put the students into pairs or groups and get them to discuss. Now, what will happen here is that obviously the first discussions will be about a description of the pictures. But the second question in each of the 2 questions, obviously students will be, will have 2 questions. The second question will focus more on meaning, inference, interpretation of the picture. And this is it's a simple idea, but it works very well. And of course, I got the AI to generate these questions. I didn't need to generate them myself. Now, in this activity, what I did was get Google Gemini to generate for me a list of kind of topics around or issues around climate, and it came up with this list here. And the activity that I would do would be to put students into pairs and get them to actually just go through and make sure that they understood or they understand all of these terms. So obviously this was for a much higher level class. So the students would work in pairs and just make sure that they're clear what atmospheric chemical imbalances, etc. And then afterwards I would give them the answers. Now here are the answers, and I simply asked the AI first to write me a list of key threats to our environment, and then I asked it to give a short explanation of each one. Now, in this particular activity, the level is quite high, but of course I could have done a similar activity at a lot lower level. Now, The inspiration for that activity was this unit of the book on changing climate. And what I'm saying is that AI can help us again to build around the book and perhaps do interesting activities. Obviously the book will have some interesting activities as well, but have some interesting activities that we can build around and focus on where we want to focus with our students. So what I like about the AI is that it builds in a lot of flexibility about the way that you approach using a book. Just a super quick break from the video. If you do like what you're seeing and you want more free videos, then come over to my website, teachertrainingvideos.com. I specialize in making videos to show teachers and students how to use technology in their language teaching and their language learning. And there's loads of content on the website. Also, if you're a language teacher, think about signing up to the newsletter. As well as getting updated on all the latest videos, there's a free 14-part course where I basically highlight some of the key technologies that we're using in language teaching. And many of the tools that I highlight are completely free. Also, if you were interested in having more training with me, then join me on Patreon. You get free videos every month with no advertising, and you get the chance to meet me online as well for an hour's training. We do an hour's training every month with the Patreon group where we actually work with the technology so you really learn to use them well. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the video. One final activity that I've been playing around with, again using Gemini, ChatGPT to help me, is to get ChatGPT to write a text. And then I ask ChatGPT or Google Gemini to rewrite that text but at a slightly higher level. And what I'm trying to do, and what I get it normally to do, is to say replace 5 or 6 of the words. Now what I'm really trying to do here is to get students out of using common words that they always use and to get them to think about more complex vocabulary. So in this activity, the students are given the text and you can highlight the words and then give them a list of words and say, right, use these words and replace words in the text so that the text then becomes slightly more difficult. Now in reality, actually making this activity is not that difficult and you could do it without the help of AI, but of course AI does it very quickly. And not only that, when you're working with text at a higher level, it would be a lot quicker than you necessarily writing out the text. So here we've got an example. Students are given a simple text or a text at their level. They're provided with a list of 5 words. And then they're asked to make the actual text more, or to change the text to use the new words to substitute, and this will be the result. And this is a really good way of encouraging students to try and experiment with new. Now let's try and generate some kind of speaking activity that would encourage students in the first instance to compare and contrast the pictures, but then perhaps to go a bit deeper and compare and contrast and talk about the lifestyle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here and say, can you produce for me a list of 5 interesting questions that will focus on getting my students of English at level B1 to describe the pictures and to contrast the 2 pictures? And then can you make for me 5 questions that will get students to think more about the possible meaning behind this picture, which juxtaposes 2 completely different lifestyles? So I put in the instructions, I click on this button, and I'm hoping it's going to generate 2 sets of questions for me, which I could then use as a type of activity with my students. Now I might have to ask to make the questions a bit shorter, but you can see that it's done that for me, okay? And this is the sort of thing that I'm suggesting, is that we can actually get the AI to generate and help us to make more interesting activities. And in this instance, what I'm trying to do is get the students not only to focus on describing the image, but also get them to focus on actually talking about the possible meaning behind these 2 images or the 2 houses placed next to each other. Okay, to finish with, I couldn't do a presentation without highlighting EdCafe. EdCafe is perhaps the most interesting technology that I found specifically for teachers in 2025. I use this technology all the time. It has a generous free offer, and what I like about it is it does so many of the things that we want. Generate reading comprehension, generate quizzes around YouTube, generate audio from text, makes great slides. It's got a brilliant flashcard tool. What I'm going to do in this video is show you the YouTube quiz making aspect of the technology, but I will provide you with a link to another video if you want to learn more about EdCafe. Let's move on and have a look. I'll add a link to EdCafe in the description below in the YouTube video, and if you click on that link you can sign up and use EdCafe for free, but also if you use that link, if you did decide to buy the premium account, then that will give you a lifetime 10% discount. Now, one thing that a lot of teachers use in their teaching and learning is YouTube, and I think YouTube is an incredible resource for language learning. I've certainly made great use of it to study Polish and French and Spanish. And I'm going to show you perhaps the best quiz making tool among other things that I've ever come across. And it's in a tool called EdCafe, and I want you to notice that I am using here the free option. Now, I do have a paid account with EdCafe because I think it's so good, but you definitely can do this with the free account. I want you to click on New, and all I want you to do, and there are many resources here that are excellent for teachers. This is almost like a toolkit for language teachers, but we're going to click on YouTube Quiz. And all I want you to do when you click on that, and it's going to open up, is you have to add in the link to a YouTube video that you want to use and make a quiz on to share with your students. Okay, so I'm on here and I just want to show you something. I'm going to do a search for shopping in English. Okay, and I'm going to click here. I'm just going to show you a couple of things that you can do when you're choosing your video. One really useful feature, if you don't know about this, is to click over here on filters, and you can click on filters and you can choose, for example, videos that are only between, say, if you don't want them to be too long, maybe between 3 and 20 minutes. And then you can even click on filters and say, well, I only want videos that have got subtitles. Could be really useful. Now I'm scrolling through these videos and I can see there's quite a few here. I don't really know many of these videos, but this one here, I know this guy. So I'm going to click on this video. Okay. I'm here today to... Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the link. Nothing else. Nothing else. Let's say I've decided I want to use this video. So I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to come back and I'm going to paste that link in. Simple as that. And now I'm going to click here. And incredibly, it's going to bring in that video for me. And then it's going to build a quiz around that video. And I get I can come down here and kind of control to a certain degree the video content. So I'm going to choose multiple choice. I'll choose 10 questions. And I'm going to ask for questions that are very specific, that test comprehension. So I've asked for questions that test comprehension of the video rather than the vocabulary. If you don't be specific about what you want, then it does tend to, offer some questions that students will be able to answer without watching the video. So I don't really want that. And I want you to notice also that you can do this in multiple languages. So you could put up a video in Polish, or you could put up a video in Chinese, or you could put up a video in Spanish or in French, etc. And I use this tool a lot to study Polish. Now, that's it. That's all you need to do. And you're going to click here on Generate YouTube Quiz, and it's going to generate the questions to go along with the video. Now, I've helped it by choosing a video that provided the transcript, because obviously that really helps. And I want you to notice also that it's producing all of the questions, but also an explanation of the answer. And it's actually even telling you where in the video that answer is. It's that simple. Now, you've made your quiz, and I want you to understand that you can come in and edit anything. So you can just change anything. If you're not happy with any of the text or whatever, you can simply edit it, change the questions. It's fully editable. And once you've finished, all you need to do is click on Save, give it a name. So we're going to call this here, we'll call this Slovakia. I'm going to spell it with a V because I'm spending too much of my time, sorry, with a W now because I spent too much of my life in Poland. And I'm going to click on Save. The quiz is generated. Now, if I wanted to assign this, so you can see how easy it is to make this quiz. Now, let's say I wanted to assign this quiz to my students. I could click on this button here. I could share the QR code if, for example, I was going to do it in class and the students could point their telephones at the screen, but I'm not a particularly big fan of using technologies like this in class. I would much rather use this technology for homework. So I'm going to copy the link. Notice that even in the free tool, you can have up to 40 responses. Now let's have a look at how good this quiz looks. So I'm just going to paste that link in that we just copied. And here it is. And I'm going to put my name in. Okay. I can play quiz. Notice, and I love this, you get the video on the right hand side and then the questions on the left. Now I'm just going to quickly zoom through these questions. Okay. And just click in my answers as fast as I can. Okay. I won't bother to watch the video, but you can see how nicely it's formatted. Okay. And click on submit quiz. I didn't answer all the questions. Oh dear, let me have a look through. That's good. Okay, I've answered all the questions and click on submit quiz. And it's going to actually give me instant feedback on my performance. It told me I've got 20%. And if I scroll down, and this is I particularly like, it actually explains to me the answer. So this is really nice because this is the feedback that the student gets. Okay. Now, if we jump back to the teacher view, the teacher will now see that there's been one response. And they can click there and they can actually look at the participant and see how that participant performed, how long it took, etc. But they can also look at the individual questions. And obviously you can have up to a maximum of 40 students. Okay, really hope you liked that video, and if you did, please click on the like button and please think about subscribing to the channel. One final thing, EdCafe, one of my favorite technologies, it has a very interesting free offer which they say will be permanent, and EdCafe can help you to do slides and teacher resources and flashcards and chatbots and AI image and AI speech and reading activities and YouTube quizzes, and they're all excellent. And if you want to learn about at least some of these features, watch the video that's on the screen now. I'll also put a link to EdCafe below in the description, and if you click on that link you can sign up and use EdCafe for free, and that same link will also give you a 10% discount if you decided to buy EdCafe, and that is actually 10% on a permanent basis. Thank you very much. Okay, really hope you liked that video, and if you did, then please come over to teachertrainingvideos.com. Loads more free videos. Look at all the different menu items at the top of the screen here. If you're a teacher and you want to keep up a little bit more with the work I do, we often organize webinars, online courses, etc. Then sign up to the newsletter, and if you sign up to the newsletter, there is a free 14-part mini video course in using technology in language teaching, and nearly everything I suggest is free. If you want to take it a little bit further, then think about joining me on Patreon. If you join Patreon, you get extra videos every month with no advertising. I just go straight into the training, lots of ideas about how you can use the technologies in the class with your students, and you also get the chance to meet me online once a month for some direct training, and that's a real opportunity for you to practice using the technologies with me. And finally, if you want to go even further, join me on my very popular course, Technologies and Approaches to Blended, Hybrid and Online Teaching. I do that in collaboration with NILE, that is the Norwich Institute for Language Education, a very prestigious organisation in the UK. And that course has been running for many years and is very popular. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave a few more videos on the screen now that you might find useful.